Did you know that between November 1932 and early 1933, the Australian military went to war against emus? And they weren't just any birds. These were giant flightless birds that could outrun a man, break down fences, and gobble up an entire field of wheat in a matter of hours. Yeah, you heard that right. The emus were the stars of this show, and the humans were left eating their dust. How did this avian army manage to defeat an entire nation? Well, let me tell you. It all started after World War I, when the Australian government was trying to find new ways to keep its soldiers occupied. So it gave them some land and told them to make farms. But then the Great Depression hit, and those same soldiers found themselves out of work and out of money, with not much to show for their efforts, except a whole lot of emus. You see, emus are kind of like chickens on steroids. They grow up to 6 feet tall, weigh over 100 pounds, and run as fast as 50 kilometers per hour. Plus, they're really hard to kill. Their thick skin protects them from most bullets, and they can fly. Run circles around a human being. So when the emus started gobbling up crops and destroying fences, the farmers got pretty pissed off and asked the government to do something about it. Now normally, this would have been the end of the story. Farmers deal with pesky animals all the time. It's just part of the job. But these were desperate times, and the farmers were desperate men. They were already struggling to make ends meet, and the last thing they needed was a bunch of giant flightless birds stealing their food and trashing their property. So the government decided to take action. It sent in the big guns, or should I say, the big bullets. On November 2nd, 1932, a group of soldiers arrived in the Campion district of Western Australia with orders to shoot as many emus as possible. They were armed with Lewis machine guns, which were capable of firing 1,200 bullets a minute. That's a lot of firepower. But what they lacked in accuracy, they made up for in enthusiasm. The soldiers lined up on a hill overlooking the plain below and opened fire. And then they kept on firing. And then they kept on firing some more. They pulled their triggers until their guns were smoking and their bullets were spent. And what did they have to show for it? A few dead emus and a whole lot of bullet holes in the ground. The rest of the birds had vanished into the tall grass, laughing at the silly humans who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And so began the Great Emu War, a 3-day battle between the Australian military and the elusive emus. The soldiers followed the emus from hill to valley, shooting at them with everything they had. But no matter how many bullets they fired, the emus seemed to multiply. Sometimes they would take down a few birds, but most of the time they just scared the others away. By the end of the 3rd day, the soldiers had used up thousands of rounds of ammunition and killed fewer than 1,000 emus. Not exactly a resounding victory. The farmers were not impressed. They called the soldiers names like emu numpties, which is Australian slang for clueless. The newspapers joined in on the fun, mocking the operation with headlines like "Our troops repulsed by emus and feathered foes outsmart machine gunners." They even gave the war a name, the Great Emu War. And the emus won. Defeated and humiliated, the soldiers packed up their guns and left the emus in peace. The farmers were left to deal with the mess and rebuild their fences. And the emus, well, they went back to gobbling up crops and generally being a nuisance. But every once in a while, when the wind blows just right, you can still hear them laughing. So remember, the next time you feel like you're having a bad day, things could be worse. You could be facing off against an angry mob of giant flightless birds with a machine gun. And you're probably gonna lose.